Good afternoon, Saints. Welcome to Bettye's 2 p.m. Zoom room study session. Yes, a late afternoon virtual Bible study brought to you by way of Healing Hands Ministry as a part of the Open Book series. I'm Pastor Stevens, the facilitator of this study session, inviting you to open your hearts and your minds as I open the book. Let's get at it.
How you doing, Miss Dorothy? You all right? Good. Clarence is still struggling, look like, with getting his camera to come on, and we're still waiting on Betty to resurface from the YouTube channel, but we know that she's there watching. Listen, we've been working with this little letter from called the Book of James. One of the things I want you to be very clear on is that James is handling the diaspora crowd, that wandering crowd, that scattered crowd that would run out of Jerusalem sometime after the stoning of Stephen. Here in the text, and I want you to notice, and I oftentimes when I'm teaching this particular letter, this particular book, I often celebrate the fact that James is so in your face. He is so blunt, and he just says what needs to be said, and he doesn't bite his tongue, and he doesn't try to dress it up. I've noticed that in the New Revised Standard, the text that I read from, oftentimes the translators are trying to polish, like they're trying to polish the language a little bit, because when I compare it to the original language, there's a slight edge. So I don't want to lose that edge with James. I want you to hear how sharply he speaks. Let's look at what we're looking at for today. Chapter 4, verses 11 and 12, and then we'll take the next 5 verses in chapter 5. Okay, listen to what James writes at 11 and 12. Warning against judging another. Do not speak evil against one another, brothers and sisters. Whoever speaks evil against another or judges another speaks evil against the law and judges the law. But if you judge the law, you're not a doer of the law, but a judge. There is one lawgiver and judge who is able to save and to destroy. So who then are you to judge your neighbor? That's a very nice rendition. We'll take a look at what is in the original language here. The prohibition that's introduced at the beginning of this verse, in the original language it says, do not speak against one another. Notice the text says, and our text says, speak evil, but this translation, the original of Greek, says, do not speak against one another, rather than some translations will say, do not slander one another. The Greek word that they're dealing with, kataliti, may be used of slander in the sense of making a false charge or misrepresentation that damage a person's reputation. But the word itself is meant for a broader use of the word. So it refers to just speaking, and the key word is against a person. Okay, not necessarily just slandering or making false statements or speaking evil, but just speaking against your brother and your sister. And that's important, brothers and sisters. Obviously, he's learned that that's what's going on. That's what's happening among the believers. They've gotten out there, and there's no pastor. There's no centralized focus for worship, and so they're just kind of hanging in there together in little places, little patches, and people are beginning to get a little bit rambunctious, drifting away from the teachings a little bit, being persecuted by the evil rich, and just going through all kinds of stuff and being treated with all kinds of disregard. And so now they're starting to speak to each other in a very crazy kind of way, speaking against one another. He says, what is said in the Greek, what is said, it may be true in its content, but the focus of it is the harsh and unkind manner in which it's presented. So the whole idea is not necessarily not saying something that a person is doing something wrong. We're not saying that, don't say nothing, but we're saying that you need to make sure you guide your tone and your attitude and your motivation, okay? Because, and that's why the New Revised Standard says, speak evil, because he wants to capture that bad intent, you know. But the whole idea that where the translators are working with is that we should not speak against one another. We should be lifting one another up. And sometimes that literally feels impossible to do when the person that needs to be lifted up is not holding anything up. You know, they're doing terrible things. I've got a very close friend whom I love dearly. She euphemizes quite a bit. I can't remember I have to make her say negative things. What do you mean? You know, I have to make her identify a behavior that is unpleasant or negative. She'll say something like, well, that was interesting. Interesting? She's not going to say, well, that was the dumbest thing I ever heard, like I would. Okay? And that's the problem. That's just not a very nice thing to say. And when I was reading this, I was like, oh, well, James, okay, I hear you. I'll work on that. I'll get up off it a little bit. So it's just a blessing to be around my girl, because she just won't do it. I've never met anybody like that. She will not say it. It can be blatantly negative and nasty, and she won't say it. She might be thinking it, but she won't say it. Me would come out. Whoever speaks evil against another or judges another speaks evil against the law and judges the law. Well, but if you judge the law, you're not a doer of the law, but a judge. What law? What is he talking about? That'll throw you. Undoubtedly, the law that he's talking about is in Leviticus. Let's see, 19:18. Love your neighbor as yourself. Okay, and what he's saying is to speak against your neighbor, brothers and sisters. To speak against your neighbor is to violate this law. And the person who does so places himself above the law, and by his actions declares that the law that the law itself is not worth obeying. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any difference. It's unnecessary. It's just something somebody said. To demean it, to set it aside. So rather than submitting to it, keeping it, he passes judgment on its validity and sets it aside by literally speaking against his neighbor. Okay, now that's kind of an interesting way that James looks at it, but that is exactly the way he sees it. That if you speak against someone, you're literally judging the law. You're saying that the law that commands us to love one another and treat your neighbor, he was saying that whole disposition, you're saying that doesn't matter. That's not important. If they're wrong, they're just wrong. You know, I'm just saying, I'm looking right now, I'm saying what I see. Those are some of the things I usually say. When I say something, I ain't got no business saying it. Look, there it is right there in front. What you want me to do? Like I don't see it. Lord help me, Lord. You know, you can just see it. You're just looking at it and going, And instead of just stopping right there, I will go right on headlong into it, Clarence, and I'll let them know what I see and say what I got to say about it. And it's you know, I'm starting to feel real bad about that right now, because my thinking was, well, it's the truth. It's the truth. She knows she over there drunk and acting all crazy. So what was wrong with me saying it? Well, you just don't speak that way against a brother and sister. You make the law, you judge the law, and you say the law not brother. See, now I know I ain't the only one, so I'm just saying, I'm trying to help some folk. Everybody ain't like my friend, okay? And I think sometimes when I ain't around, you might get a one or two in, because I think we all have that tendency. But it's worth the processing to really stop and think that you're speaking in a bad way. And New Revised Standard insists on saying you're speaking judgmentally. You're speaking because you're judging the law. You may not judge the person, but the fact that you're taking liberty to say something that is mean-spirited is judging the law that says don't do that, and by doing it, you're saying that the law is not substantial. Okay, I hope that makes sense to you. And then he says, now in the 12th verse, which is really powerful, there is only one lawgiver. And that means that there's only one judge. So it's only God who is able to save and to destroy. So the New Revised Standard says, who then are you to judge your neighbor? But in the Greek, it says, but you, who are you? Okay, and that's very sharp and very shatteringly blunt. Who do you think you are? You know, and the idea is this: James just crushes right in on the readers and says to them, "You have no right, and you should not be about this kind of posturing." Okay, so in short, we're not really allowed as believers to speak against our brothers and sisters. We're just simply not allowed. Now, this does not rule out civil courts and judges, you know, because you take people to court. Doesn't rule that out, okay? What he's saying is, instead, it is to root out harsh, unkind, critical spirit talking that continually finds fault with others. You've been around people like that. Nobody does anything right. They find fault with everything and everybody. Now that's a different shade now, because when people present themselves bizarre, I may have a comment there, but I don't spend time sitting around trying to discern what's negative about everybody. That's a whole nother level, but it encompasses the same judgment, because in the final analysis, you are speaking against another brother or sister. This is something we don't do. That's just not how we roll. Isn't that fascinating that James can be so tight like that? I mean, he's tight. That's tight, baby. I mean, you want to say, well, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard. And he's like, well, I can't say that. That's kind of harsh. And when you stop and think about it, it really is, because someone just told you what they thought, and your response to their personal thought is, that's stupid. That's rude. Okay? So I can hear where James is coming from. He's putting a weight on it. He says we're speaking against our neighbor and judging the law, and deciding that the law that calls us not to judge is beneath us, and we can set it aside. It's not important. That's worth thinking about. The next piece, next exhortation that he gives us is in chapter is 13 through 17. And this is one that I read a long time ago, and has since I drift in and out of it in my own thinking. Listen to this. This is interesting. Come now, you who say today or tomorrow we will go to such and such a town and spend a year there doing business and making money. yet you do not even know what tomorrow will bring. What is your life? For you are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wishes, we will live and do this or that. As it is, you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil. Anyone then who knows the right thing to do and fails to do it commits sin. Now this again is a very tight instruction if you stop to think about it. Now, this section takes another example of the wisdom that characterizes the world. Okay, if you look at back at 4:15, look at instead of the idea is at 15 he's giving you a better thought. So before we get there, let me get ahead of myself. It characterizes the world. James is addressing apparently businessmen, probably Christians, and he says in 17 that they know better, so they're just doing this, practicing this way, and not thinking clearly, but practicing, making business plans, planning their lives, things they're going to do, where they're going to go, how they're going to get it done, and they're just openly planning. Now, obviously, they're business people. They travel. In the first century, that was a big thing. That was a big thing that they did. Take, for instance, Priscilla and Aquila. They were on the move quite a bit. Lydia also, she was a little a businesswoman. You know, these people travel from place to place. And notice how he lays it out, how well planned. We're going to go to this or that city. Okay, then we're going to spend a year there, carry on business, and make money. The starting time is arranged today or tomorrow. The city has been selected, such and such a town. Now, nowhere in this planning does God have any place. This is what James is pointing to. Now, as believers, we will say, well, that goes without saying. You know, why would I say that? Why would I plan? I mean, you know, if God says no, it's no. If God don't make a way, then it can't be done. James is saying that the way that we are thinking, when we don't include him in his will in our planning, is a statement of self-sufficiency. Which means that we're really not including God in the planning. We're really not dependent on God. He's arguing that whatever plan that we have, or whatever planning that we make, it needs to be contingent on the will of God. That's a statement that we're depending on God to allow for and to provide for all that we are attempting or thinking that we're going to do. That is up to God. It's his will. He says that they were living, making no allowance for unseen circumstances, as if they were so confident that they would be able to carry their plans through completion. So James just kind of points out the fallacy in their thinking. You know, you don't even know what will happen tomorrow. Or to say nothing about whether or not you even be alive in a year. Okay, you know, you don't know what's going to happen at the end of the year. I think that reality hit me dead in the head the year my mother passed. You know, the new year we were together laughing and talking, and I never would have thought this would be the last year that my mother would be alive on the face of the earth. In October, her birthday was in November. In October, I was planning, you know, her birthday. She's going to do her birthday. And she died. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. You know, that's how life is. It's interesting. Just recently, I have a friend who's suffered a major stroke, and while driving, and he's in the hospital, and all of us are just, in our minds, we're just frantic because this is a really, really good person. You know, and the major question comes up: why is somebody so good? You know, and the question, you know, and I was asked several times, but bad things happen to good people. And when you raise the question, why? Because God is sovereign. It's the only answer I can think to give you. It's His will. And we have to be willing to embrace His will, accept His will, submit to His will, and recognize that that very same situation awaits any one of us. You know, because it didn't happen to you does not mean that it won't happen to you, or something similar, something even worse. So he raises a question in the text that's really interesting. What is your life? And he gives a nature kind of answer. For you attached to that question, for, you know, the for is attached. You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. You know, like you wake up in the morning and there's the dew and the mist, and then by noon it's gone. That's the way James says we should view life. Now, as simple as that is so profound and so on point, because we have to release ourselves from thinking that tomorrow belongs to us. For that matter, this evening, in the morning, at midnight, life is more like a mist. I mean, we're transitory people. This transitory nature of life is hard to embrace, but James forces the readers to pay attention to it. And see, to plan your life as if you are totally sufficient and totally in control of all things is to suggest that there is no transitory element at all that you need to be concerned about. James wants us to acknowledge that I'll be going to such and such a town, doing such and such a thing, and if it's God's will, God willing. Simple as that. I'm reminded of Paul's effort to get to Thessalonica, and he said he tried over and over and over and over again to get back to Thessalonica, but every time something would come up, and he finally said that it was Satan blocking him from coming back. And ultimately what he was actually saying was it was just not God's will for that to happen that way. As believers, we can't struggle with the will of God. We have to submit to it. That's very difficult. When we start struggling against it, we say, well, I'm just being human. No, you're not relying, totally reliant on God. Whatever, His will is the only will I have for my life. Okay, so James is kind of like trying to get them to understand this, your self-sufficient mentality is problematic. Okay, now you're saying you're being critical, criticizing one another, and you're judging them, setting aside the law. And now he said, and not only that, but you are living your lives as if God is not in control. As if you have guarantees on tomorrow that you do not have. Some of James' readers have been planning as if they were going to be here forever. Now, if we go back and look at 13, come now, you who say, and the Greek there is this was going on. This was going on. You know, this is the way they were living. You know, this is the way that they were boasting about tomorrow in a real sense. You know, in the morning, I'm going to get up and we're going to go do this and go do that, go do this and go do that, and then we'll do that. And James is saying that's not how we should be thinking. That's not how we should be reasoning. And that's not the presentation we should be giving other people. You know, they were doing business. And so it was important for James that as Christians, we have our priorities in place. So the idea, God willing, sets priority and precedence to our planning. Now, you say, well, that just, you know, everything you say? Well, listen. James even goes on to say that when you get into the mechanics and you're just putting God willing on everything that you say, you know, it has to be meaningful. Not, you know, God willing because, you know, like, this is what you're saying. You got to really mean it. Otherwise, that's a greater situation, you know, a greater problem. To say God willing does not ensure it's going to happen. That's not a magical term. That's saying like a mist. I may plan this, and if God says no, then it's no. And you got to mean that. And that's why you say God willing. You're not saying God willing to get permission to do it. You know how we do. Yeah, God willing, and you just saying God willing, you're throwing it off. But he wants us to really have some really intense focus here and recognize the importance of totally depending on God in our everyday living, in the way that we understand life, in the way that we plan, the way that we do business, the way that we invest, the way that we live life. We need to live with the priority of total dependence on God because he is the only judge and he is the only one in control of life. Our steps are literally ordered because we are believers. And we're the ones who have to live like we understand that. You remember in Luke's gospel when Jesus was with the 12, and then I think around 13 or 14 chapter of Luke, I believe it was, they came to Jesus and told him that some Galileans had been brutally killed. And because he was from Galilee, they thought Jesus was going to go, oh my God. And Jesus said, and basically said, if that were you, are you better than them? That they were killed? Are you better than them? If it were happening to you, would you be ready? And Jesus took it to that level of being focused and being prepared for whatever happens. And we can't get ready, we need to be ready. So it's a very strong teaching. And so he gives 15, and 15 he says, instead, if the Lord wishes, we will live and do this or that. If the Lord wishes. That's a powerful place. Okay? Clarence is having the time, ain't it? Okay, let's see. The idea of a Christian safely assuming that he can live independently of God is scary. And James is concerned that the self-sufficient person. Well, I be. Look, what time you get up? I'll be here tomorrow, and I'm gonna do so. I'll get it in the morning. First thing in the morning, I get it. That language seems to suggest. There you go, Clarence. You are up. He raised his head up. He died. That language seems to suggest that you can live independent of God. That's more the issue for James. Not a ritual, not developing a ritual where you are saying the right words and sounding spiritual, but a commitment that you're not trying to live independent of God, and that you're willing to give God all all the focus and the dependence. That's my man. That's my man. Good job, Clarence. You fought the good fight, young man. So the idea then is thinking independent of depending on God is a level of arrogance that the believer cannot afford. Okay, we can't do that. Whether men recognize it or not, they will live and do this or that only if it is the Lord's will. You understand? Now, from studying this clause, and I mentioned it earlier, this conditional clause, if the Lord is willing, if the Lord is willing. That's it. That's the New Testament makes it clear that we're not to repeat it mechanically in connection with every statement that we say about future plans. But the idea here is that it is obvious that it is an explicit reality, and we're connecting to that reality. So that we need to be able to understand adding the phrase doesn't make the meaning. It's got to be a serious examination of how you see life and how you plan in this life. Because we all do it. I'll see you tomorrow. I got you. Jarrell and I, well, I think we were studying this very passage at some point or another. And we started saying that when we were talking on the phone. He said, okay, Lord willing, see you in the morning, bro. You know, that kind of thing. And it was a peaceful close, because I know how he feels about the Lord. I know how he feels about his life, and he knows how I feel. So it was kind of a communion of sorts. It was nice. It was good to talk to somebody who understands that they're not in control and their life. See, and then so that when something like what happened to my friend Charles, when something like that happens, I'm not so shocked, you know, when you see the mist in the morning and by noon it's gone away. There's no way that you can really prepare yourself for relationships ending abruptly like that. But there is a way that you can think so that your thoughts can feed your lack of preparation. You know, you gotta know how to think. And that's what James was after when he was dealing with this particular subject matter. Some of the readers, rather than subjecting their plans to God's will, made it their practice to kind of boast and brag. To make plans without considering God's plan is the same thing as arrogantly claiming to be in full command of the future. This is what I'm going to do. I said I'm going to do it tomorrow, and I will. Unless I forget it. Is that the only way that you won't do it? What if tomorrow is not granted to you? What if tomorrow is not granted to the place where you're going? You know? So in the Greek text, this notion, you are boasting in your arrogant pretensions. Proud confidence in one's own knowledge or cleverness, which means you're being, you're being arrogant. Because in the bottom final analysis, I don't care how knowledgeable you are and how clever you are, you're still not in control of tomorrow. Let's see. Anyone then who knows the right thing to do and fails to do it commits sin. This statement may apply to any number of situations, but James intended it to refer to immediately to this particular context. He says, anyone then who knows the word then introduces a concluding summary statement. I'm going to do this. He says, then, anyone then, this is a concluded statement. He's argued, made a statement, and so he throws his then there because he wants you to reflect on what he said. So then listen to what I'm saying. Making your plans, you know what the right thing is to do. And if you refuse to do it, continue to act as if you're not doing it, then you act as if you are sufficient, you got it. And he says very clearly, basically inherently in the statement, you've been fully warned. Now that I've pointed the matter out to you, you have no excuse. Knowing what you should do obligates a person to do it. This is James. James said, you know it better, so do better. As I have about 9 devices on. Way to go, my brother. By the time the class, yeah, by the time the class is over with, class, I got it. But I know you were listening to the whole thing. I know you were listening. But the good news is you can go to the link and sit down and listen to it. Just don't pay no attention to all the stuff you doing. Because it is kind of funny, Clarence. Especially the part where the top of your head was just showing. I think Dr. missed that part, but I didn't. He stuck his hand up. I said, you, and then about second leg at the top of his head. I said, oh, Lord. You, my man, I love you. So here we are. Clarence has entertained us through the whole study, but the idea here now that James is trying to get us to do, see, is to pay closer attention. One of the things that saints don't do very well is pay attention to character, to their language, and to their particular behaviors. James is very tight on this scattered group of believers because they're scattered among non-believers. And he wants them to behave and move like the folk in Jerusalem, move like all the other believers. So don't spend your time while you're out there trying to make money and trying to survive. Don't leave God out of that. You'll be there if it's the will of God. Always remember how reliant on God you and as believers that we are. Because our lives are like mist. I particularly like that example, but it's very shocking. Like mist. In the morning you get up and it's out there, and by noon it's gone. That's just how life is. So you got to make sure that you got to constantly be living your life depending on God and living your life under the auspices, under the decisions that God has called for us to make in Christ Jesus. It's just that important. We are transitory beings. We're just passing through this world. We can't be dropping anchor, acting like we're going to be here until we get tired of being here. You know, some will live 100, some won't live to see 25. Like mist. And it's scary. You know, it's really scary. Cancer. I had a friend, cancer in the body. Didn't know it. Final stages, dead in weeks. Life is like a mist. And so when we sit here, now I think, okay, I'm 69 now. And a birthday, 69. I'm like, wow. Actually, 69 years old. I know I don't look at Clarence. You ain't got to tell me. I know I don't look at, but you know, hey. My knees and my back look it.
I can't see it. He didn't allow me to get 79, so I can't complain.
You see what I'm saying? And you think about it. You know, it's like, what a blessing, and what an offering, what a gift. But it's nothing you did. It's through nothing that you did. I hear people say, well, the secret to long life is what? You don't have control over long life. You have no control over we can do the best that we can. Go to the gym and lift the weights and do the exercise, eat properly, take your medicine. But still. One of the things my doctor told me after my heart transplant, he says, now listen, don't get frustrated because you can do everything right. Take all the meds, get all the sleep, eat the right foods, and still something could go awry. There's no guarantee. Wow. That's the nature, that's the way we live. And because we are believers, that's the way we have to stand. So that's why James is saying it's really important not to be planning your life as if God is not in control of your life. It just makes you sit down and think. It just makes you sit down. You're living too fast. And so it's good to just sometimes I do that. I go, Lord, I'm out here on your word. That's all I got. Stop you from doing a lot of complaining. Stop you from doing a lot of worrying. I'm trying to learn to be more content in whatsoever state I'm in. And there is just so much about our faith that if we take time, as you get older, you start valuing it. I wish I had been this way 20 years ago. But I thank God I got it now. I can close pretty good, Clarence. I wasn't responsible for how I got here, and I messed up the front end, but I can close it real good. So let's be mindful of that, okay, guys? Well, we'll stop here and we'll enter into chapter 5 next week, okay? Clarence, be sure now to sit back and listen to the video, okay?
I was listening to you all the while. I had both of them. I had this one on and the phone on.
Yeah, but she was down on the floor.
I had to get up and make sure that thing. And I don't know what when the friend came on, we were talking to each other.
Yeah, and then it just went out. All right, then. Y'all take care. Miss Dot, you got to school him, girl. You got to school him. Have you guys seen Betty? She's okay?
I think she was the day before yesterday. She was doing fine.
All right then. Okay, well, we'll see you guys next time out. Those of you who listen to us by way of my Bettye Zoom room, if you're listening by way of my YouTube channel, thank you for being present, being a part of our study, and thank you for allowing us to have some time, your personal time. See you next week if you're able, and we'll do more. God bless your hearts.
Take care.
Well, it seems our time in the Zoom room has come and gone. We look forward to seeing you again on next Wednesday at 2 p.m. here in Bettye Zoom room. Would you consider subscribing to our YouTube channel? And if you do, be sure to ring the bell so that the notification can go out every time we open the book. God bless your hearts, and we'll see you when we see you.